This is First Up with Kane Cornes, thanks to Sportsbet. I'm Sarah, Olle and Kane. After going 0-5 to start the season, the D's have now made it 5 from their past 6. Today, a thumping 53-point win over the Sydney Swans, and they lay claim to being one of the hottest teams in the competition form-wise.
Yeah, they got themselves back into form, haven't they? Look at that since their 0-5 start. So pretty good results there, in particular last week and today, which was absolutely dominated the time in forward half, plus 20 in inside 50s, and a really strong performance in all facets that would have them feeling much better about their prospects for making a late charge toward the 8.
How much credit do we need to give to coach Simon Goodwin? At 0-5, it was calamity. There were questions around whether or not he was the right man to take Melbourne forward. You actually did urge for some patience and calm. You said the next 4 weeks would prove a lot. Well, it's been 6 weeks since then, Kane, and I think we've got to tip our hats to Simon Goodwin.
Yeah, I think when you say calm, like he's been really calm, I think, and he's been really positive. So it's easy to sort of get quite negative when things aren't going the way that you think they would. But he's been really positive. He's backing his players, and they've responded pretty strongly, led by the captain, Max Gawn, who's been just phenomenal. He's been one of the stories of the year, an inspiration. So I still think they lack a key forward. They're just really struggling to have that key forward winner. And that the quarter today, the third quarter, 23 entries, you go, well, they weren't able to maximise the opportunities that they had, which is still an issue for them.
I like to keep receipts on this show, and this time last week you said the big 3 Ds, or the top 3 Ds, were Gawn, Petracca and Melksham. I think Keziah Pickett took issue to that, Kane, because he came out firing today. 5 goals, 24 disposals and 6 clearances. I mean, if he kicked straight, this would have been one of the all-time games from Cozzy.
Yeah, I'm not sure how I left him off, which is shocking by me. So good receipt keeping from you, because not only is he a top 3 demon, he's building towards a top 10 player in the comp. Like, this is the second game this year where he's had 20 and kicked 5. The other one against Fremantle, which was the best individual game that I've seen all year. He's an absolutely freakish performance today, and he's now starting to do it consistently in the most difficult position on the ground. And that's also credit to Simon Goodwin, I think, for allowing him to go to more centre bounces, which does get you involved in the game, feeling better about yourself, and then getting a mismatch forward. So 5 goals for today, 12 score involvements, 24 touches, and probably matched that performance against Fremantle. He's probably got 2 or 3 of the best 5 performances individually for the year.
Now, the Swans have a plethora of issues, and discipline continues to haunt them. Today, Malikan, McInerney and Amadi were all unavailable through suspension. And skipper Callum Mills, in his first game back, he may have an issue when it comes to this incident, this bump on Charlie Spargo. Now, the D's assure me that Spargo passed his HIA, but why is Callum Mills leaving the ground in this situation, Kane?
He had no need to. I mean, the one thing that you could say is that he got the ball. So he actually made a late play on the ball, and he actually got his hands on the ball. So it is a split-second decision to leave your feet. That's what's really cost him, and the fact that he has shaped the bump and got him high. So he'll be in trouble for that. There's no questions about that. But he did actually touch the footy almost, which, I don't know, may be able to mount a case if they take this to the tribunal and challenge what I think will be a suspension.
So the Swans are now 4-7. Do we have to concede that they're done? Do we put a line through last year's grand finalists?
Yeah, I thought they were done weeks ago, and they looked at they've been pretty good. They'll hang in there for the season, and they will get some unexpected wins late, particularly if some of those players come back. But like Melbourne, they don't have the key position forward either, who can actually be a winner on the ground. So Amadi not there, McLean looked underdone, Logan McDonald is out injured. That's been a real problem for them, and their depth has just been tested too much, and they don't have the depth to be able to hold up like a Collingwood have this year when their best players have been there. So it's a reset year for the Swans. They'll assess what they need at the end of the year from a list point of view. They'll get their key players back, and I wouldn't be surprised if next year looks a lot better than this.
At Marvel Stadium, I describe it as a mature win from the Gold Coast Suns over St Kilda. I feel like in years gone by, this is a game that they may have dropped. I mean, even earlier this year, we saw them drop a game at Marvel against Richmond. But in the end, 19-point winners over St Kilda. And they just did the job, which is a sign of a good team, a mature team, Kane.
They've done that a lot this year. It's a completely different looking unit. Like, they were challenged against the Western Bulldogs, they were challenged against Hawthorn, and were able to hang on and win both those games. So this is a different outfit. Been on the road for 3 weeks, which presents its own challenges for a young group. This ground has been a problem for them, beaten against Richmond earlier on this year, and the coach has got a history with this ground that isn't favourable. So it was an ugly game. It's not one that you would watch the replay of. It's 13,000 people turning up, zero atmosphere, yet they've been able to pull off a pretty impressive performance. And they're sitting as well as anyone inside the top four with still a game in hand. I keep saying it, they can win the premiership this year.
Now, I'm not sure if you're familiar with the term Nepo baby, Kane. It's big in Hollywood, but Ross Lyon, he brought it to Marvel Stadium this afternoon when it comes to the Gold Coast Suns.
You know, I'm a little bit concerned. They're chock full of talent, aren't they? The AFL Nepo baby. But
I mean, what do you make of the comments? I find them curious. Before the ball's even bounced, he's having a go at the so-called Nepo babies of the AFL. But does it feed into this attitude that they have at St Kilda where it's just, woe is me? I feel like from the top down, Andrew Bassett, he's the chair complaining about something, and Ross Lyon couldn't help himself today pre-match.
A little bit. What he's saying is accurate. So what they've said about the complaints that they've had is accurate. And Ross is having a bit of a laugh about it. But what he's essentially doing is setting himself up to fail before the game has even started. He's giving himself an excuse and an out. Well, they're far more talented than us. What do you expect? But deep down, he's right. And he's not the only coach saying that. But there's a time and a place for when you go public with those types of comments. And there's a forum to do that. It would have been in the coaches meeting that they had during the week with Andrew Gillen. That's the place. The place isn't on national TV before your game is about to start, giving yourself an excuse before the game's even started. So, yeah, I mean, it's going to be hard for the Saints. They're basically an irrelevant club, really. 13,000. They're asking for more games at the MCG, but as if the AFL is going to give them those, as if they're going to give them primetime slots when their crowd doesn't turn up and, you know, they kick 60 points for the game. Like, it's just not going to cut it.
Early today at Adelaide Oval, the Crows launched into the top four. That was courtesy of a 66-point win over West Coast. This was a frustrating watch in the first half, but it was all one-way traffic, Kane, in the second half. One way, and that was the Adelaide way.
It was the Adelaide way. 11 individual goal kickers. I love the fact that Matthew Nicks is giving more exposure to different names through the midfield, which has allowed him to play Dawson and Rankin more forward. Rochelle was a star with 5, but they had avenues everywhere. They did what you'd think they would do against West Coast. That's about the difference. 10 goals. I think it was 66 points in the end. And Adelaide would be feeling pretty good about themselves. This is how they did it. Rochelle kicked a career high, equaling 5 goals. He kicked 5 on debut. He did it again today. But they just had options and class everywhere. And their front six is as damaging as any in the game. I think Brisbane have got the most dangerous forward line in terms of their smalls and medium-sized players. But Adelaide's is right up there.
Yeah, so as you mentioned, Josh Rosselli, he kicked 5 goals on debut back in 2022, and today he equalled that feat. That was with Taylor Walker being the late out. Now, I'm not sure if you caught this towards the end of the game, Kane. If you'd switched over to the match at the MCG, you would have missed it. But tensions, they did boil over here. And this is Liam Baker, one of the veterans who's sparked this big brawl, this big melee. I mean, if you're Andrew McWalter, what are you saying to this guy who you've brought over to espouse leadership? For me, this is not leadership.
No, I was there. I saw it firsthand. It was poor, really. So he got him high, Peatling, then drove his head into the ground with his elbow. And then Rankin came across and made him look foolish. So Rankin was really upset by it. And then Liam Baker's gone like a rag doll and given up. So I thought it was embarrassing, to be fair. Like, you're going to be a big, tough guy and drive someone's head into the ground. And then as soon as you're challenged by an opposition player, you go to water. I don't think it was a great look for, one of their more experienced players.
Time now for Volcano.
So I just want to speak about the recruit of the year in terms of value for money, and that's Matt Kennedy. And we know how it ended at Carlton. The vision of him getting subbed off in a final was confusing for us all. It was confusing for him. And he couldn't quite work out what had happened. So that was basically the end of his time at Carlton, and he was traded for not much at the end of the year. And his performance has just been unbelievable, really. Like, if you want to look at some of his vision, Thursday night he was huge again, impacting in whatever position they are asking him to play. Here's some of that. He goes forward and he's kicking goals, strong in the air, and he's so versatile inside or half forward or wing, wherever it is, tough in the contest. So where would he sit if he was a Carlton player, Matt Kennedy, in terms of the numbers, the key statistical areas? I wanted to have a look at that. So if we get his numbers up now, that's where he'd sit. So He'd be fourth in disposals. He'd be third in clearances. He'd be fourth in tackles, second in inside 50s. He'd be first in score involvements and second in goals. He'd probably be their third best player. So it'd be Curnow, Cripps and Kennedy, and they've traded him for nothing. I just think it is one of the all-time horrible trades that I've ever seen in my time, certainly working in the media, and surely Carlton is sitting back going, why did we not show this guy some more love? But credit to the Western Bulldogs for getting him and the impact that he's having.
I mean, those numbers are astounding. Look away, Blues fans, if you are indeed watching. Just to play devil's advocate, though, Kane, is it not common for a player to go to a new club and find a new sense of freedom? I mean, we've seen it with Bailey Smith, haven't we? This year at Geelong, he's playing out of his skin. Has this just happened with Matthew Kennedy as well?
Yeah, I would argue that both of those players weren't used to their best of their ability. Like Bailey Smith would be producing those numbers if he was playing for the Western Bulldogs. He just wasn't being played in the right position. When you're playing him half forward and you're trying to turn him into something he's not, then he's going to struggle. As soon as you put him inside, you're going to get those results. Same with Kennedy. Like he was thrown all over the place at Carlton and just not showing the love and respect that he deserved for such a much loved player. So I would argue that, yeah, it's easy to play well in a winning side. So I'd give you that. But certainly his performances would have been better if they used him in the right areas.
Yesterday at Marvel Stadium, was it a case of deja vu Daicos? And I refer to Nick Daicos and the damage he did against North Melbourne late, Kane. He was absolutely sensational, but arguably not paid enough respect. And this is a movie we've seen before.
This is a movie we've seen before. So nearly exactly 12 months on, there's his numbers in the second half against North Melbourne in round 14 last year, where they came back from 51 points down, I think it was, and won. And then there's yesterday, as a similar story unfolded where Collingwood kicked 7 goals to 1 in the last quarter. No one went near him. So if you're Alistair Clarkson, I know it's Nick Daicos. I know he's burnt us in the past. So there he is on Parker to start the third term. The amount of room that they gave him straight after that. So look at Parker and the lack of respect on the game's best player. I couldn't believe it. It's coaching, it's leadership, it's player execution, and it's allowing one of the best players in the game to do as he pleased. And look, once again, so we're highlighting him there. Is anyone going to think about going and playing, standing alongside and being accountable for him or not? He had 17 touches in the last quarter and got them going with his ability to do this clearly. So I don't know. I can't believe North Melbourne weren't more competitive in a game where Collingwood had all of those star players out and Braden Maynard injured. And part of the reason was because they left this guy to do as he pleased again.
Are you impressed by the depth? I mean, you mentioned some of the players that were out. Moore, Pendlebury, Hill, De Goey, McStay, Schultz. I mean, they just seem to have weapons everywhere across the field. I mean, Oleg Markov got the late call-up, Kane, at Bunnings. He was doing home renos.
Yeah, it's amazing. They've surprised me so much, Collingwood, with what they've been able to do. So hopefully they get their full squad back and peaking at the right time, which I think they'll be able to do because they're banking those wins. So you'll be able to manage the squad. But just a phenomenal season and a credit to the system that Craig McRae has put in place and the players' ability to execute on that.
We know when it comes to Hawthorn, they're navigating a really tricky patch at the moment where they're playing, I think it is 5 top 8 opponents in a row. They failed yesterday against Brisbane, the reigning premier, at the MCG. And you feel like one of their biggest strengths from last year, Kane, is deserting them. And that's when that comes to their ball movement and indeed that precision kicking, which was such a standout in 2024.
Yeah, so this is what concerns me when you lose your biggest weapon, and that's that run and your ability to be damaging with your disposal. We've spoken a lot about the damage off halfback for Hawthorn. This is just the third quarter alone. I thought they were so wasteful with their ball use and probably left 5-6 goals out on the ground, and this is deflating. Like even missed handballs from good players and choosing the wrong option going inside forward 50. Weddle a couple of times. Is he going for goal? Is he passing it? Not sure. As good as he was, you can see the frustration for Sam Mitchell. So I just think I'm not giving up on Hawthorn. I think they'll be fine. They're still in a good position. They've got a tough couple of weeks, Collingwood and the Western Bulldogs, but they've got to get back to that damaging ball use and their confidence with footy in hand, because that deserted them yesterday.
Time now for the temperature test, thanks to Sportsbet. And Kane, are we seeing some movers and shakers this week? You've only got one team, the Brisbane Lions, running hot.
Just sort of change it up this week, because I believe that Brisbane at their best are clearly the best team in it. And we saw that at the MCG I just think talent for talent, and their midfield is just extraordinary. So I think everyone is chasing them, and rightly so. But then there's some good teams beneath them, and then the rest, it's pretty much season over, other than the Giants, I would think. So the Giants, Melbourne sort of fighting Fremantle for that 8th position. But I think it's a clear hierarchy of where the game sits, and that's Brisbane out on top.
All right, Kane. Thanks for your work this evening. We'll see you again next week on First Up with Kane Cornes. Thanks to Sportsbet.
Thanks, Sarah.
What's gambling really costing you? For free and confidential support, call the number on the screen or visit the website.